Thank you kindly. What an honor it is to be here today again for my second ever visit to the Valley Voters Summit. Where do I begin? First things first, would you all just please relax, count to 10, and take a deep breath. I know a lot of you were very, very worried when somebody I worked for called Steve left the White House. And I know that even more of you, a week later, when I resigned, were very troubled. But there's no need. There's absolutely no need. The success of the values you believe in, the success of the mission that we all took upon ourselves last November the 8th is not a function of where I sit or where Steve has his office. This is much larger than the White House. This is a national movement to retake our country. I know the left, I know the progressives were celebrating, opening their bottles of champagne when Steve left and when I left, but they have no idea what they did. It's like that penultimate scene in Star Wars. I'm a kid of the 70s, so I like all that stuff. When Darth Vader and Ben Kenobi are dueling on the Death Star, you remember? And Obi-Wan, the Master Jedi, says, "If you strike me down now, I will be more powerful than you can ever imagine." That is Steve Bannon today. The left has no idea how much more damage we can do to them as private citizens, as people unfettered by being part of the US government. And as you can see from the campaigning I did for Judge Moore and Steve as well, we have begun. 2018 will be the crucial year. This is the year. Steve has declared war on the Rhino class, as have I, and we must tell them we have had enough. The left has a problem. The left is a problem. But they have an excuse. They've been reading Saul Alinsky for 30 years. They've been listening to Noam Chomsky and moronic individuals like Michael Moore. But the Republican GOP establishment has no excuse. They say they are on the side of immutable, objective truth. They say that they believe in the founding principles of this, the greatest nation on God's earth. But they get to this city and it all disappears. And they all become business as usual politicians. Could you imagine if any of our founding fathers had been told that there would be Americans who would be elected to be representatives of their state, who would then stay in office in DC for 30 plus years? They wouldn't have bothered to fight the British. And you'd all talk like me today. It is disgraceful. And that's what we're going to change this year. We're going to take on every swamp dweller. Every swamp dweller. Whether on the left or the right, they will be shown the door. And representative government will return. So that's the task we have ahead of us. Before we talk about how that'll be done, and I know Steve has lots of things he's going to share with you about his plan, let me share with you a little bit about my time inside the White House. It was a high honor, it was a career pinnacle to be asked to be a strategist and deputy assistant to this president. And I'd like to share with you a little bit about who this man is, so that we can destroy all the lies, all the smears from the fake news industrial complex. The first thing, I met Donald J. Trump in the summer of 2015 when I was invited to his office in New York to help prepare him for a debate, a presidential candidate's debate. And the thing that struck me is that when the door closed, it was just him, myself, and Corey Lewandowski, his campaign manager, is that this man is exactly the same behind closed doors as he is in public. There's no filter. There's no false DC screen. There's no two faces. In DC, you see these politicians that walk into a room, and if they see somebody important or they see a TV camera, it's like a switch gets flicked at the back of their head and this grimace, this Washington smile comes across them. There's nothing like that. This man is who he is, unfiltered. What you see is what you get. And that's why Austin was so absolutely right in the previous panel. He doesn't care what the New York Times thinks about him. He doesn't care what CNN thinks about him. And rightly so, because those people don't represent America. They just don't represent America. So he is who he is. And the thing that made me realize that this is somebody that we can put our money on, we can bet that this guy can win, is that the first thing that was clear to me is that Donald J. Trump is kryptonite to political correctness. He hates it with a passion. And it is only somebody of his ilk who could have won the election. Only somebody who couldn't care less about political correctness and was going to call out the fake news for their lies. So, number one, he is who he is. Secondly, and the reason I really agreed to work for him, is within minutes it was clear to me that this man understands we are at war. He understands the threat from groups like ISIS. He understands the threats from countries like Iran, from China, from Russia. And the most important thing of all, he wants to win the war with our enemies. So that's the president. What happened in the last 9 months? Why have you seen the things occur that have occurred? And here I'm going to use an analogy from my childhood. John Milius, great film director, great writer, a Hollywood legend. I'm sure most of you in here are familiar with one of his best movies, Red Dawn. And I mean the original Red Dawn. Red Dawn is a story set in the 80s about the Soviet Union and Cuba invading the United States. And a scrappy little band of insurgents stands up to fight this giant juggernaut of communism. That's really what happened on November the 8th. On November the 8th, a man who was the rank outsider, think about it, never held public office in his life, a rank outsider wiped the floor with 16 rhino establishment candidates. Not only did he defeat his establishment rivals, he then proceeded on the night of November the 8th to defeat a woman who had officially, but you can double it, officially spent $700 million on a campaign for a seat that she thought was rightfully hers because of her gender and her last name. And he defeated her. As a result, when we moved into the White House a few months later, on January the 20th, it was a scrappy band of insurgents that moved into the White House. It wasn't the schlep of a GOP establishment of a rhino candidate. It was the utter outsider and his small band of merry men and women. No, it was. It was like Robin Hood. Robin Hood taking over the empire. And a couple of dozen people gained the reins of an administration that has more than 2 million employees in it. If you add the armed forces, it's several million people work for the federal government. In fact, the best description for what happened at 12:01 on January the 20th is the most leveraged hostile takeover in US history. As a result, it is not surprising, and nobody should be surprised, that over the next few months, the massive establishment swamp treated us as antibodies and did everything they could to box us out, to fire more lower-level individuals who were Trump loyalists in the National Security Council. And then eventually we realized the writing was on the wall. Steve and myself realized if we believe in November the 8th, if we really want to support the president, the best way we can do that is from the outside of the building. So, bottom line, relax, take a deep breath, count to 10, it's going to be okay. Because this is not about the last 8 months, it's about the next 8 years. And then it's about the following 8 years under President Pence. The fact is, the president is surrounded by people who have nothing to do with his original campaign. He has people in high office in his administration who not only would have been comfortable in a Clinton administration, they would have been cabinet members in a Clinton administration. But it's okay. Why? Does anybody in this room think that the only people the president talks to are people who have a government ID badge? I can tell you, he doesn't just talk to those people. And the president is very loyal to those who are loyal to him. And he is, you must understand, if you only want to know one thing about this president, he is a pragmatist. Look at what he's done. Steve's going to talk about the amazing things he's done in the last 8 months. But not only is he a pragmatist with the eye of a businessman, he is a patriot and he loves this country. Additionally, and I'd like to ask for your assistance here. I tell you, hand on heart, and if there was a good book here, I'd swear on the Bible, there is not a racist bone, nay, there is not a racist molecule in that man's body. The accusations against myself and Steve, we take that as, if you're not taking flak, you're not over the target, right? If the Washington Post or the New York Times or Politico or CNN ever said anything nice about me, you should all ask for your money back, okay? But when the President of the United States is labeled a racist, a xenophobe, an anti-Semite, when his grandchildren are Orthodox Jews, then it's an outrage. It's an outrage. And I'd like to call upon you as force multipliers to push back on the lies. Don't let them get away with it. And we are winning already. Look at the facts. Anderson Cooper, the star of CNN, on a good night gets 700,000 viewers, okay? 700,000 viewers. This is a nation of 330 million Americans, okay? They're irrelevant. They are ranked 13th nationally in viewership, 2 positions between Nick at Night and their cartoon shows. Okay? That's what the American people think of CNN. On the other hand, people like Sean Hannity, they're crushing it every night. Crushing it every night, breaking records, millions of people watching them. So push back on the lies. Don't let them get away with it. So, what about the road ahead? What do we have to do? We have to support the president It's not about one man, please. This is not a cult of personality. It's about what we voted for on November the 8th. And it's very important to understand the philosophical underpinnings. This isn't just random stuff we kludged together during the campaign. There's one thing that underpins every single thing that was part of our campaign, whether it's the wall, whether it's defeating ISIS, whether it's pulling out of NAFTA, whether it's leaving UNESCO. All of these things together are tied with one philosophical connective tissue: national sovereignty. We want our sovereignty back. If 1776 means anything today, it is that the word America has meaning. And it's not some crypto-fascist garbage that they accuse us of, because we don't look at our fellow Americans based upon skin color. That was the Obama regime. We don't divide America. We don't look at you based upon your ethnicity. We don't look at you upon your chromosome count and what your sexual preferences are. That's the Marxist way of dividing people. We look at you as an American. Think of the reality. When we build this wall, and it is being built, guess who we are protecting first? It's not me. It's not the white-skinned Catholic dude who's comfortably living off, in Northern Virginia. Who are we protecting? The newly minted recent immigrant to America who's on the bottom of the wage scale and is going to be damaged by the guy who comes in illegally working for free. We're protecting them. Whether they're Mexican, whether they're Nigerian, if they're American immigrants, we're going to protect them as well. And that's the priority the president has most in front of him every day, and I can assure you. The president takes one responsibility seriously above everything else, and that's keeping every single American in this country, whether you voted for him or not, keeping you safe. %78% decrease in illegal migration before we've built the wall. Just think about it. Almost 80% decrease. As one Special Forces guy told me about what we're doing in the Middle East right now with our military unleashed, we are stacking the jihadis like cordwood. Okay? That's what this president is about, making you safe, and secondly, making sure that every single American has the chance to prosper. There's not going to be handouts. This isn't about Uncle Sam looking after you. This is about the American dream, giving you the opportunity to prosper, to be safe and to prosper. That's, in a nutshell, what this president believes in. So, what can you do? Join the club. Don't just sit here and, don't just buy your tickets to next year's summit, okay? Check out what we're doing already. Join our team. Go to the MAGA Coalition, M-A-G-A, coalition.com. MAGAcoalition.com. This is my super PAC, and this super PAC doesn't represent the usual people. There's no, insurance companies, big pharma. No, you know what this is? This is a super PAC for the forgotten men and women who voted for Donald Trump. So if you want to help, if you want to drain the swamp, if you want to be part of this, join our team. Because Steve said something at CPAC. And you're going to hear him right now. But I want to repeat, in case he doesn't tell you again what he said at CPAC. If you think that the establishment swamp is going to give us back our nation without a fight, you are sorely mistaken. So let's stand together, let's come together, and let us make America great again and reinstill in our nation and celebrate the Judeo-Christian values that it was founded upon. And to quote, I know it's a little early, but that's okay. You all forgive me. To quote my former boss, Merry Christmas.